Daniel Voss had learned that every new colony in the galaxy had its own strange personality. Some planets were too quiet, some were too loud, and some seemed to have a personal agreement with technology to make human lives as complicated as possible. The colony of Elisera 7 was supposed to be different. It was advertised as a peaceful frontier settlement where humans and alien civilizations could finally live together without the endless conflicts that had filled the previous centuries. The advertisement had forgotten to mention that the elevators occasionally argued with passengers, the kitchen machines sometimes refused to prepare coffee before sunrise, and the apartment maintenance drones had a strange habit of pretending not to hear complaints. Daniel had spent 10 years repairing machines across different worlds, and he had discovered one important truth. No matter how advanced technology became, something would always break at the worst possible moment. Artificial intelligence, quantum engines, gravity stabilizers, all of them are impressive, he once told a malfunctioning cleaning robot. But somehow you still can't understand that a sock on the floor is not an alien invasion. The robot had responded by flashing a red warning light and moving away from him. Daniel still wasn't sure if it was offended. After leaving his old military engineering position, he chose Elisera 7 because he wanted a quiet life. He rented a small apartment near the edge of the colony, far away from the busy commercial districts and the endless political discussions that followed humanity wherever it traveled. For the first few months, life was exactly what he wanted. Quiet, simple, almost suspiciously peaceful. Then he met his neighbor. Her name was Lyra. At first glance, anyone would have thought she was human. She had a graceful appearance, pale skin, gentle eyes, and long golden hair that fell over her shoulders. But there was one detail that immediately revealed she was not from Earth. Two long, elegant ears extended slightly from beneath her hair, a natural feature of her species that made her look both familiar and wonderfully different. Daniel first saw her when she was standing outside her apartment, trying to convince a small delivery drone that it had delivered a package to the wrong person. "I understand you are an advanced machine," Lyra said calmly, "but I am certain I did not order 12 containers of frozen insect soup." The drone beeped. Daniel looked at the boxes beside her. "That's unfortunate," he said, "because from the smell, I think the soup has already chosen this apartment as its new home." Lyra turned toward him, surprised. For a moment, Daniel wondered if he had made a terrible first impression. Alien cultures could be complicated. Some species considered jokes a sign of friendship. Others considered them a declaration of war. Thankfully, Lyra smiled, a small smile, but a real one. "I suppose I should be grateful it was not something dangerous," she replied. Daniel looked at the boxes. "That depends. Have you ever tried alien insect soup?" "No." "Then we cannot be certain." That was the first conversation they ever had. After that day, their meetings became more frequent. They would see each other in the hallway near the colony gardens or at the small market where humans and aliens bought supplies. Their conversations started with simple topics, weather patterns, colony repairs, strange local customs, and slowly became longer. Daniel noticed that Lyra was different from most people around them. She was polite but distant, friendly but careful. She listened more than she spoke. She laughed at his jokes, but there was always a quiet sadness behind her eyes. It was as if some part of her was still somewhere far away. One evening, while they watched the artificial sunset projected above the colony dome, Daniel noticed her staring at the stars. "Do you miss your home?" he asked. Lyra remained silent for several seconds. "Sometimes," she finally answered. Daniel nodded. He didn't ask more. He understood that some questions were doors, and some doors should not be opened until someone was ready. Over the following months, their friendship slowly grew. Daniel helped her repair small systems in her apartment, and Lyra introduced him to alien foods that were either surprisingly delicious or extremely dangerous. One time she offered him a traditional drink from her homeworld. After one sip, Daniel's face turned pale. "Is this supposed to make my mouth feel like it has been attacked by a tiny explosion?" Lyra looked concerned. "That means it is working." "Working for what?" "I am not completely sure." Daniel laughed so hard that he almost dropped the cup. For the first time in years, Lyra laughed with him without holding back. But despite their friendship, Daniel still knew almost nothing about her past. Nobody in the colony did. People had theories. Some said she was a wealthy traveler. Others believed she belonged to an ancient alien family. A few claimed she was hiding from someone. Daniel ignored all of it. He had met enough people in the galaxy to know that everyone carried invisible scars. Then, after months of conversations, something unexpected happened. One evening, as Daniel was returning from repairing a damaged communication tower, Lyra was waiting outside her apartment. She looked nervous, more nervous than he had ever seen her. "Daniel," she said quietly, "would you come inside for a moment?" He looked at her door. This was the first time she had ever invited him in. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Because I should warn you, I am terrible at escaping mysterious situations. My strategy usually involves making jokes until the danger gets tired." For a brief moment, Lyra smiled. "I believe that is exactly why I asked you." Daniel followed her inside. The apartment looked ordinary at first, a small living space, simple furniture, a few plants from different planets. Nothing unusual. Then Lyra walked toward the entrance and pressed a hidden control panel. The door closed. A lock activated. Daniel froze. He slowly looked at her. "Should I be concerned?" Lyra turned around. "No. Should I at least pretend to be concerned? I have seen enough science fiction movies to know this is usually the moment where someone discovers they entered a secret laboratory." For the first time that evening, Lyra almost laughed. But her expression quickly became serious. "The lock is not to keep you inside, Daniel." The lights in the room changed. The walls began revealing hidden technology beneath their surface. Ancient holographic symbols appeared in the air. Machines that should not exist in a simple colony apartment awakened one by one. "The lock is to keep everyone else out," she whispered. Daniel stared at the impossible technology surrounding him. And then he realized something. The quiet neighbor he had known for months had never been hiding a small secret. She had been hiding an entire universe. Daniel remained completely still as the walls of Lyra's apartment transformed around him. A moment ago, he had been standing in the home of a quiet alien neighbor who liked unusual drinks and strange plants. Now he was surrounded by ancient machines, floating holograms, and technology that looked like it belonged in a museum from a civilization thousands of years ahead of humanity. His first thought was simple. His second thought was much less intelligent. "Lyra," he said slowly, looking at a massive holographic display appearing above the floor. "I have a very important question." She looked at him carefully. "What is it?" "Do you have a normal neighbor problem?" Lyra blinked. "A normal neighbor problem?" "Yes, like loud music, borrowing tools and forgetting to return them. Maybe a strange pet making noise at night." She stared at him. Daniel pointed at the glowing machines around them. "Because I feel like we skipped several steps. Most people say my neighbor is annoying. Nobody says my neighbor secretly owns technology that can probably rewrite the laws of physics." For a few seconds, Lyra looked confused. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. It was a quiet laugh, but it was genuine. "I suppose my situation is slightly unusual." "Slightly?" Daniel looked around. "Lyra, my apartment's biggest mystery is why the kitchen machine burns my toast while claiming it is improving the flavor. Your apartment has ancient alien technology hidden inside the walls." The humor disappeared from Lyra's face slowly, replaced by a deep sadness. "Daniel, before you hear what I have to say, you need to understand something. Everything you know about me is incomplete." The holographic display changed. Images appeared above them. A vast alien city stretched across a distant planet. Towers reached beyond the clouds. Ships moved between buildings like glowing rivers in the sky. Millions of lights covered the surface of the world. Daniel watched silently. "This was Aurelian," Lyra said. The pride in her voice was impossible to miss. "It was my home." The image shifted. A massive palace appeared at the center of the city. Unlike human buildings, it seemed alive, with structures that adjusted themselves according to sunlight and energy patterns. Thousands of spacecraft surrounded it. Daniel stared. "That is your home?" Lyra nodded. "Yes." Daniel looked at his surroundings again. Then he looked back at the hologram. "So when you said you had moved here because you wanted a quieter place, you meant you went from ruling an empire to living next to me because my apartment's broken water system is peaceful?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Something like that." Daniel shook his head. "I really need to improve my ability to recognize important neighbors." The hologram changed again. This time, Lyra appeared wearing a magnificent armored suit. A crown-like symbol rested above her forehead. Behind her stood thousands of soldiers. Daniel immediately understood. You were not just important. No, you were royalty. Lyra looked away. I was the last queen of the Aurelian Empire. The room became silent. Daniel had heard stories about the Aurelian Empire. Everyone had. It was one of the greatest civilizations in known space. Their technology had influenced countless planets. Their medical systems could heal injuries that humans considered impossible. Their exploration ships had traveled beyond mapped galaxies. And then, almost 15 years earlier, the Empire disappeared. Not destroyed completely, not conquered publicly, just gone. History records claimed the royal family had been lost. Daniel looked at Lyra. They thought you died. Yes. Everyone. Almost everyone. She walked toward a smaller holographic device and touched it gently. I escaped during the final days. My own advisors betrayed me. They wanted control of the Empire, but they knew the people would never follow them while I was alive. Daniel frowned. So you hid here. I changed my identity. I abandoned my title. I became someone nobody would notice. Daniel looked at her long ears. He raised an eyebrow. Respectfully, you chose a difficult species trait to hide. Lyra touched one of her ears. My people consider them beautiful. They are, Daniel replied immediately. The answer came so naturally that both of them paused. Lyra looked surprised. Daniel suddenly realized what he had said. I mean, scientifically speaking. Scientifically? Yes, very scientific. Extremely professional observation. A small smile appeared on her face. You are terrible at hiding embarrassment. I repair machines for a living. Machines usually don't judge me. Actually, your repair drone once called you inefficient. Daniel looked offended. It was having a bad day. The drone was correct. Daniel placed a hand over his chest. Even you are taking the machine's side? For a moment, the weight of the past disappeared, and Lyra smiled again, but then the hologram changed. A warning symbol appeared. Daniel immediately noticed the difference. What is that? Lyra's expression became serious. It means someone has detected my presence. The room's systems began activating. Hidden sensors scanned the colony. The advanced technology that had been sleeping for years suddenly came alive. Daniel stepped closer. Who found you? Lyra looked toward the stars outside the window. The people who destroyed my empire. A cold silence filled the room. They have been searching for me all this time. Daniel looked at the hidden machines, the forgotten weapons, and the woman standing before him. A former queen. A survivor. Someone who had spent years pretending to be ordinary. He should have been afraid. A normal person would have been afraid. Instead, Daniel sighed. Of course. Lyra looked at him. Of course. Yes, I finally make one interesting friend, and naturally she turns out to be a hunted alien queen with enemies across the galaxy. Despite the danger, Lyra almost smiled. You make everything sound simple. Daniel looked at the warning signals flashing around them. No, I think everything is very complicated. He paused. But complicated things still need someone to fix them. Lyra stared at him. Why are you not leaving? Daniel looked confused. Should I? Most people would. Daniel thought for a moment. Then he shrugged. I have spent my entire life repairing things everyone else gave up on. His eyes met hers. I don't think people are much different. For the first time in many years, Lyra felt something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. But outside the colony, hidden among the stars, a distant ship changed its course toward Elisara 7. The next morning, Daniel woke up believing that perhaps everything that happened the previous night had been caused by exhaustion. That was his first hope. Then he opened his eyes and saw a small floating device hovering above his bed. Good morning, Daniel Voss, the machine said. Daniel stared at it. No. The device tilted slightly. No. No. I am still sleeping. This is a dream. My brain has finally decided that normal problems are too boring and created an alien robot to bother me. I can assure you that I am not a dream. Daniel sat up. That is exactly what a dream robot would say. The machine released a small electronic sound that somehow felt like a sigh. I have analyzed your personality data. Your response patterns are inefficient. Daniel pointed at it. See? Rude. Definitely real. The small device moved closer. I am a 17, Royal Assistant Intelligence of the Aurelian Empire. Daniel rubbed his face. Of course. Of course, the hidden apartment of a former alien queen also came with a sarcastic floating machine. His life had officially become too strange. A few days earlier, his biggest problem had been repairing a damaged energy converter. Now he had learned that his neighbor was a hidden queen. Ancient technology existed inside her apartment walls, and a machine was criticizing his personality before breakfast. I miss boring, Daniel whispered. A 17 continued. The queen has requested your presence. Daniel looked toward the door. Does the queen usually request people? Or is this another situation where I should worry about being locked inside a room? Your concern is understandable. However, the queen has never locked anyone inside this residence. Daniel raised an eyebrow. She locked me inside yesterday. The door was locked to prevent enemies from entering. Yes, but from my perspective, I was a man standing in a room with a secret queen and a glowing wall. The difference between a rescue mission and a kidnapping is mostly paperwork. The machine processed this. Your humor is unusual. Thank you. It was not a compliment. Still counts. When Daniel entered Lyra's apartment, he found her standing before the large holographic map of the galaxy. The peaceful neighbor he knew was gone for a moment. In her place stood someone carrying the weight of an entire civilization. But when she turned and saw him, that sadness softened. Daniel, I apologize for involving you in this. He walked closer. Is this the part where you tell me I should leave? Lyra looked down. Perhaps. Daniel shook his head. You are not very good at convincing people to leave. Why? Because every time you try, you look like someone asking for help while pretending not to. Lyra became quiet. For years she had survived by hiding. She had convinced entire worlds that she was gone. She had learned how to control her emotions, hide her identity, and disappear into ordinary life. But Daniel had noticed everything. That frightened her more than any enemy. The people coming here are not ordinary enemies, Lyra said. They are from the Varkon Dominion. They were once allies of my empire. They became our greatest threat. The holographic map changed. A fleet appeared. Hundreds of warships moved through space. Daniel studied the image. How long? At their speed? 3 days. Daniel nodded slowly. 3 days. Yes. He looked around the room. So we have 3 days to prepare against a powerful alien fleet. Correct. Daniel pointed toward the ancient machines. And you have all this technology. Yes. Then why do you look worried? Lyra hesitated. Because these systems require a royal command code. And you have it. No. Daniel looked confused. But you are the queen. I was. The words were quiet. Daniel understood. The empire had fallen, but she had lost something more important than a throne. She had lost the belief that she still belonged there. "Lyra," he said, "you do realize that machines are usually easier to repair than people, right?" She looked at him. "Are you comparing me to a damaged machine?" "No." A pause. Maybe slightly. For the first time that day, she laughed. It surprised her. It surprised Daniel too. "That was a terrible joke," she said. "Yes." "Why are you proud?" "Because it worked." Together, they began examining the ancient technology hidden beneath the apartment. Daniel discovered that the systems were not just weapons. They were a network of advanced devices designed to protect entire planets. There were energy shields, communication arrays, medical systems, and even machines capable of rebuilding damaged ecosystems. "This civilization was incredible," Daniel said. Lyra looked at the holograms. "It was." "You miss it?" She was silent. "Every day." Daniel looked at her. "Then maybe you should stop thinking about bringing back the old empire." Lyra turned toward him. "What do you mean? Maybe the problem is everyone is trying to restore what was lost." He touched the holographic map. "Maybe you should build something new." Lyra studied him. "You are suggesting a new civilization?" "I am suggesting you stop trying to become the person you were before everything happened." She looked away. "I was a queen. And now?" She didn't answer. Daniel smiled slightly. "Now you are Lyra, my neighbor who makes dangerous drinks and has a robot that insults people." A 17 immediately responded, "I do not insult. I provide accurate observations." Daniel pointed at the machine. "See? That is exactly what an insulting robot would say." Lyra laughed again, but the moment was interrupted. A warning alarm suddenly filled the room. The holographic map changed. A small red signal appeared near the colony. Daniel's expression became serious. "What is that?" Lyra stepped forward. Her face lost its warmth. "It is a scout drone." The signal moved closer. "They already found us." Outside the colony, beyond the artificial atmosphere and the endless fields of stars, a small alien vessel disappeared into the darkness. It had been watching, waiting, and now it had confirmed one thing. The lost queen of Aurelian was alive. The alarm continued echoing through Lyra's apartment, filling the room with a cold mechanical warning that made the situation feel far more serious than Daniel wanted it to be. He looked at the flashing red symbol above the holographic map. Then he looked at Lyra. Then he looked at A17. The small royal assistant floated calmly in the air. Daniel narrowed his eyes. "Is everyone in this galaxy capable of staying calm except me?" A 17 rotated slightly. "Your stress response is significantly higher than average. Thank you for confirming my panic. It was not intended to comfort you." "I know. Somehow that makes it worse." Lyra ignored their conversation and focused on the approaching signal. Her fingers moved across the holographic interface, activating layers of security systems hidden beneath the apartment. The simple home where Daniel had shared jokes and repaired broken machines suddenly became something else. A command center. Ancient technology awakened around them. The walls displayed thousands of energy readings, communication channels, and defense systems that had been silent for years. Daniel watched the transformation. "I have to admit something." Lyra looked at him. "What?" "I am starting to feel slightly underqualified." "You repaired colony systems for 10 years. "Yes, but those systems usually complained because a wire was loose. This system looks like it could complain because a planet is incorrectly positioned." A -17 processed his statement. "Your concern is reasonable. The planetary defense network has the ability to affect gravitational fields." Daniel stared. "See? That is exactly what I mean." Lyra almost smiled, but her attention returned to the approaching drone. "The scout ship will not attack immediately." Daniel looked at the hologram. "How do you know?" "Because the Varkon Dominion does not rush. They study their enemies first. They want to understand our weaknesses." Daniel crossed his arms. That sounds like bad news. It is. Good. I was worried this would somehow become easy. Lyra looked at him. Easy? Daniel pointed at the alarm. We have an ancient queen, a forgotten empire, enemy ships arriving, and a suspicious robot judging my life choices. I think we passed easy several hours ago. Despite everything, Lyra smiled. But then the holographic image changed. A small spacecraft appeared. It was not a military ship. It was a communication probe. Lyra's expression changed. They are sending a message. The room became silent. A holographic figure appeared. A tall alien warrior wearing dark armor looked down at them. His eyes were cold, and the symbol of the Varkon Dominion was displayed on his chest. Lyra of Aurelian, the warrior said. You have been hidden for many years, Daniel whispered. That is never a good opening sentence. Lyra stepped forward. You found me. The alien warrior smiled. You were never truly lost, only waiting. His voice carried confidence. The empire you abandoned belongs to those strong enough to claim it. Lyra's expression hardened. You destroyed millions of lives. History is written by those who survive. Daniel immediately disliked him, not because of the threat, not because of the armor, mostly because he sounded like every villain from every old human movie. He whispered to Lyra, Does every evil space commander practice the same speech? She almost looked at him. What? You know, the dramatic voice, the serious face, the whole, I am powerful because I stand in a dark room thing. A -17 interrupted. Analysis confirms the subject uses intimidation techniques. Daniel nodded. Thank you. Finally, someone agrees with me. The Varkon warrior continued speaking. Return with us, Lyra. Accept your place as a defeated ruler. Your death is unnecessary. The message ended. The hologram disappeared. For several moments, nobody spoke. Then Daniel looked at Lyra. He really needs better communication skills. She looked surprised. What? He invited you to surrender and somehow made it sound like a business meeting with terrible customer service. For a moment, Lyra tried not to laugh. Then she did. A small laugh. A real one. But after the laughter faded, the fear returned. They will come for me. Daniel nodded. Yes. You should leave. He looked at her. Why? Because this is my battle. Daniel walked toward the holographic systems. No. Lyra stared. No. No. You do not understand the danger. I understand enough. She shook her head. You are a human engineer. They are an interstellar military force. Daniel looked at the ancient technology. Maybe. He touched one of the control panels. But you are forgetting something. What? I know machines. The system reacted to his touch. Ancient symbols appeared. Lyra looked shocked. How did you activate that? Daniel looked at the glowing panel. I have no idea. A 17 immediately answered. The system recognized his neural patterns. Daniel looked at the machine. Can you say something less terrifying? The system believes you are compatible with royal technology. Daniel froze. Lyra stepped closer. That should be impossible. Why? Because only members of the Aurelian royal bloodline could access these systems. The room became silent. Daniel looked between Lyra and I-17. Well, he pointed at himself. That seems like information we probably should have discovered before today. A 17 scanned him. Additional analysis required. Lyra stared at Daniel. For the first time since revealing her secret, she looked genuinely confused. The man she thought was simply a kind human engineer had just activated technology that even her enemies could not control. Outside, the Varkon scout ship transmitted one final signal. The message was simple. The Queen had been found. But now there was another mystery. a human who could open the doors of Aurelian power. Daniel stared at the glowing symbols floating above the control panel, hoping that if he looked confused enough, the universe might decide to explain itself. It did not. The ancient Aurelian system continued scanning him, projecting streams of information that moved too quickly for even his trained engineer mind to understand. "This is strange," Lyra whispered. Daniel looked at her. "I was hoping you would say something more comforting." She looked at him. "Such as?" "I don't know. Maybe." "Congratulations, Daniel. You accidentally activated an ancient alien system because you are secretly important." Lyra remained silent. Daniel sighed. "That was supposed to be a joke." "I know. And I am still trying to understand if it is true." Daniel looked back at the machine. "Great. Even the Queen is confused. That makes me feel much better." A 17 floated closer, examining the data. "The system has completed its analysis." Everyone became quiet. Daniel pointed at the machine. "Before you continue, can you promise not to say anything that will completely destroy my understanding of my own life?" "No." Daniel sighed. "I appreciate the honesty." A 17 projected a holographic image. The Aurelian Defense Network recognizes Daniel Voss as a compatible guardian. Lyra stepped forward. "Guardian?" "Correct. That title was reserved for the highest-ranking protectors of the royal family." Daniel looked around. "So, what exactly does that mean?" "It means," Lyra said slowly, "that the system believes you can command certain Aurelian technologies." Daniel rubbed his forehead. "This is becoming a habit. First, I discover my neighbor is a queen. Now I discover my neighbor's ancient machines think I am important." A 17 responded, "Your importance remains unconfirmed." Daniel looked at it. "Thank you for protecting my confidence. It was not my intention." "Yes, I know." Lyra continued studying the data. "There must be a reason." Daniel looked at her. "You mean besides the obvious answer that the universe has a strange sense of humor? The Aurelian systems were designed to identify certain qualities, such as trust, loyalty, the ability to protect others." Daniel became quiet. Those words felt heavier than he expected. He had spent years repairing machines because it was easier than dealing with people. Machines did not betray him. Machines did not leave. Machines only needed the right tools and patience. But Lyra was not a machine. She was someone who had lost everything. And somehow, despite being hunted, she was still trying to protect others. Before Daniel could respond, the colony's communication system activated. A message appeared. It was from the settlement commander. "Lyra, we need to talk." Her expression changed immediately. "She knows." Daniel looked confused. "Who?" "The colony leader. She must have detected the Aurelian technology." A few minutes later, they arrived at the colony command center. The building was normally filled with administrators and engineers, but now everyone was watching the strange energy readings appearing across their screens. Commander Elena Maris looked at Lyra carefully. "I knew you were hiding something." Lyra lowered her head. "I apologize." Elena looked at Daniel. "And you?" Daniel pointed at himself. "Me? You were with her." Daniel nodded. "Yes." Elena studied him. "Do you know what you are involved in?" Daniel glanced at Lyra, then at the hundreds of warning signals, then back at Elena. "Honestly? Not completely." Elena raised an eyebrow. "That is not reassuring." "I know. I am working on it." For some reason, Elena almost smiled. Almost. Then the room became serious again. "The Varkon Dominion has sent another transmission," Elena said. A holographic message appeared. The same warrior appeared. But this time he was not speaking to Lyra. He was speaking to the entire colony. "Citizens of Elisara 7, the woman you shelter is not who she claims to be. She is the last ruler of a failed empire. Surrender her, and your world will remain untouched. Silence filled the room. Daniel looked at Lyra. He could see the fear she tried to hide. Not fear for herself, fear for everyone else. She believed that wherever she went, destruction followed. The transmission ended. Commander Elena looked at the colony leaders. We need to decide. Daniel noticed Lyra stepping back. She was preparing to leave. He followed. Where are you going? She stopped. I cannot allow this colony to suffer because of me. Daniel shook his head. You are doing it again. What? Running away? Lyra looked at him. I am protecting them. No. His voice was calm. You are deciding for them. She said nothing. Daniel continued. You spent years believing you had to carry everything alone. But maybe that is why your empire fell. The words hurt. He knew it. But sometimes the truth needed to hurt. Leaders are not people who stand alone, Daniel said. They are people who give others a reason to stand with them. Lyra looked away. I lost my kingdom. Maybe. Daniel smiled slightly. But you still have people who care about you. She looked at him. Why do you care? Daniel thought for a moment. Then he answered honestly. Because you were the first person in years who made me feel like I was more than just someone fixing broken things. Lyra remained silent. The moment was interrupted by A-17. Warning. The machine appeared beside them. Varkon attack fleet has entered the system. Everyone looked toward the main screen. Hundreds of ships emerged from hyperspace. The sky above Elisara 7 filled with alien warships. Daniel stared. That is a lot of ships. Lyra nodded. Yes. He took a deep breath. Just checking. We are still trying the peaceful option first, right? A-17 responded. Probability of peaceful resolution extremely low. Daniel looked at the machine. You really need to learn when not to answer. The first enemy ships moved toward the colony. But this time Lyra did not hide. She stepped forward. Not as a queen who lost her empire, but as someone finally ready to protect her future. And standing beside her was a human engineer who had no idea how he became part of an ancient galactic conflict. But he knew one thing. He was not leaving. The sky above Elisara 7 changed completely. The peaceful blue atmosphere that had protected the colony for years was now filled with the shadows of enormous alien warships. The Varkon fleet surrounded the planet like a metal storm, each ship carrying enough weapons to destroy cities within seconds. Inside the colony command center, alarms echoed across every screen. Daniel stood beside Lyra, watching the enemy fleet move into position. I have a question, he said. Lyra looked at him. Now? Yes, actually, especially now. She waited. Why does every advanced alien civilization still solve problems by bringing giant ships with weapons? Lyra looked confused. What do you mean? Humans have the same problem. We create incredible technology, discover new planets, build machines that can think, and then someone says, you know what this needs? More explosions. A-17 floated nearby. Historically, conflict has been a common response to disagreements. Daniel looked at it. Thank you, A-17. You somehow made war sound like a normal customer complaint. The machine remained silent. I believe that was humor. It was. It was unsuccessful. Daniel looked offended. You are improving. At least now you know what humor is. The command center doors opened. Commander Elena entered with several colony engineers behind her. We have activated the planetary shield. The holographic display showed a massive energy barrier forming around Elisara 7. Daniel studied the readings. How long will it hold? Elena hesitated. Against this many ships? She looked at Lyra. Not long. Lyra stepped toward the controls. The Aurelian Defense Network can help. Everyone became quiet. But the systems require a royal command. Daniel looked at her. And you are the queen? Lyra's expression changed. I was. Daniel shook his head. Lyra, I think we need to stop saying that. She looked at him. Why? Because every time you say it, you sound like someone apologizing for surviving. The words affected her. For years, she had carried the guilt of losing everything. She believed her failure as a ruler had caused the destruction of her civilization. But Daniel saw something different. He saw someone who had lost a world and still chose kindness. The ancient systems activated as Lyra approached the main console. The holograms recognized her presence, but instead of opening completely, the system paused. A message appeared. Royal command requires confirmation. Lyra frowned. Confirmation? A 17 scanned the message. The system requires the presence of the guardian. Everyone looked at Daniel. He pointed at himself. Again? Nobody answered. Fine. I guess I am officially the strange human who touches alien machines and accidentally gets promoted. He stepped beside Lyra. Together they placed their hands on the control panel. The room shook. Ancient energy flowed through the entire colony. Across Elisera 7, forgotten Aurelian structures awakened beneath the surface. Hidden satellites rose from underground chambers. Defense platforms emerged from mountains. Ancient ships that had been sleeping for centuries began powering up. Everyone watched in disbelief. Elena stared at Daniel. You activated a lost civilization's defense network. Daniel looked at the glowing systems around him. I am starting to think my repair skills are becoming dangerous. A 17 responded. Your abilities appear unusual. That is the nicest thing you have ever said. It was not intended as praise. I know, but I am accepting it anyway. Outside the planet, the Varkon fleet detected the activation. Their commander appeared on the communication channel. Lyra answered. The alien warrior looked surprised. You finally reveal yourself. Lyra stood proudly. No. The commander narrowed his eyes. No. I am not returning to the past. She looked at the colony behind her. I am protecting the future. The enemy commander laughed. You believe this colony can replace your empire? Lyra's expression remained calm. No. She looked at Daniel. Something better can. The communication ended. The Varkon fleet began firing. Energy weapons crossed the darkness of space. The Aurelian defense systems responded instantly. Massive shields appeared around the colony. Ancient defense drones moved into formation. The battlefield became a combination of old and new technology. Daniel watched the battle from the command center. That is incredible. Lyra looked at him. You are smiling. I know. You should be worried. I am worried. Then why are you smiling? Daniel pointed at the screen. Because I spent 10 years repairing broken machines. Now I am watching machines that were broken for centuries come back to life. He paused. That is kind of beautiful. Lyra looked at him quietly. She understood. Daniel did not see technology as weapons. He saw possibilities. The battle continued. The Varkon forces were stronger, but the Aurelian systems were smarter. Instead of destroying enemy ships, they disabled their weapons and forced them to retreat. The enemy commander became furious. They are resisting, a Varkon officer replied. Because of the Queen? The commander looked at the battlefield. No. He focused on the human standing beside Lyra. Because of him. Inside the command center, a 17 suddenly interrupted. Warning. Daniel immediately sighed. Why does every important moment begin with that word? Because warnings are important. Could you sometimes say something like, good news, everything is wonderful? I do not possess such a function. Of course you don't. A-17 projected new information. The Varkon fleet is retreating. Everyone watched as the enemy ships began moving away, but Lyra did not celebrate. Daniel noticed. What is wrong? She looked at the departing fleet. They are not retreating because they lost. The screen showed a final signal from the enemy. They are preparing something else. The message appeared. A single sentence. The Queen has returned. Now the galaxy will remember why it feared Aurelian. Daniel looked at Lyra. That sounds bad. It is. He nodded. Good. Lyra looked surprised. Good? Daniel smiled slightly. Yes, because this time you are not facing it alone. For the first time in years, Lyra looked toward the stars without fear. The war was not over, but she was no longer hiding. And the galaxy was about to discover that the fallen queen of Aurelian had returned with something far more powerful than an empire. She had found people willing to stand beside her. The days after the Battle of Elisera 7 felt strangely peaceful. Daniel found that more suspicious than the attack itself. After spending years repairing machines, he had learned that silence usually meant one of two things. Either everything was finally working, or something much worse was about to break. And considering his recent experiences, he was not willing to trust silence. He stood outside the colony's main engineering facility, watching workers from different species repair damaged systems together. Humans worked beside alien engineers. Former enemies shared tools. Machines from different civilizations connected and communicated. It was strange, but it was also exactly what Lyra had hoped for. You are staring again. Daniel turned. Lyra stood behind him. She no longer looked like someone hiding from the universe. She still had the same elegant appearance, the long ears that revealed her alien heritage, and the same calm eyes. But something had changed. She was no longer carrying the weight of a lost empire alone. I am observing, Daniel replied. That is what you call staring? Yes. Engineers have professional names for everything. Lyra looked around. And what is the professional name for watching people work? Advanced supervision. Is that another way of saying you are avoiding your own work? Daniel looked offended. I have done extremely important things, such as, I activated ancient alien technology. Accidentally. That does not make it less impressive. A-17 floated beside them. Correction. It makes it statistically more unusual. Daniel pointed at the machine. You see? This is why nobody invites you to celebrations. I am an artificial intelligence. I do not require invitations. Exactly. That is the problem. Lyra smiled. The old Lyra would have been surprised by how easily she laughed now. For years she believed happiness was something she had lost forever. She thought her life after the fall of Aurelian would only be survival. But Elisera 7 had taught her something different. A person was not defined by what they lost. They were defined by what they chose to build afterward. The Varkon Dominion had not disappeared after their defeat. Instead of launching another attack, their own citizens began questioning their leaders. The truth about Aurelian's fall had spread across the galaxy. The Varkon leaders had not destroyed the empire because Lyra was weak. They had destroyed it because they feared a ruler who valued peace more than conquest. When the truth became known, many worlds that once followed the Varkon Dominion abandoned them. For the first time in decades, the galaxy began moving toward cooperation instead of endless conflict. But one problem remained. The future of Aurelian. Many former citizens wanted Lyra to return as queen. They wanted the old empire restored exactly as it was. Lyra stood before thousands of people through a galaxy-wide holographic transmission. Daniel watched from the colony. He expected her to wear the ancient crown. She did not. She appeared wearing simple clothing. No armor. No symbols of power. Just Lyra. I spent many years believing I had to restore what was lost, she told them. But the past cannot be rebuilt. We cannot return to what we were. The galaxy listened. We can only decide what we become next. Her message created something new. Not an empire, not a kingdom. A united alliance where worlds could choose cooperation instead of obedience. Aurelian technology became available to civilizations that needed healing, energy systems, and environmental restoration. The same machines that once protected a throne now helped rebuild planets. Daniel watched the broadcast beside Lyra. "You realize you just changed the entire galaxy?" She looked at him. "With help." Daniel shrugged. "I mostly stood near machines and pressed buttons. You also believed in me when I did not believe in myself." He became quiet. That was the one thing Daniel had not expected. When he first arrived at Elisera 7, he thought he wanted a simple life because he was tired of people and conflict. But he had been wrong. He was not tired of caring. He was tired of caring alone. Lyra had shown him that fixing things was not just about machines. Sometimes people needed someone willing to stay. Several months later, Daniel returned to his apartment. Everything looked normal. Almost. His old kitchen machine still malfunctioned. His repair tools were still scattered everywhere, and his neighbor still occasionally brought strange alien food. "I have a question," Daniel said as Lyra entered. "What is it?" "Are you aware that your life changed from hiding in a small apartment to becoming one of the most important people in the galaxy?" Lyra nodded. "Yes." "And you still visit me?" "Yes." "Why?" She looked at him. "Because here I am not a queen." Daniel smiled. "And I am not a legendary guardian." A 17 suddenly appeared. "Correction. You are classified as an Aurelian guardian." Daniel sighed. "Nobody asked you." "I was providing information." "You were interrupting." "That is a common human interpretation." Lyra laughed. The sound filled the room. The same room where she had once locked the door because she was afraid. Now the door was always open. Not because there were no dangers left. There would always be dangers. There would always be enemies. There would always be unknown worlds waiting beyond the stars. But Lyra no longer faced them alone. One evening, Daniel and Lyra stood outside the colony, looking at the endless universe above them. The stars that once represented everything she had lost now represented everything that was still possible. "I used to look at the stars because I was searching for my past," Lyra said. Daniel looked at her. "And now?" She smiled. "Now I am looking for the future." Daniel nodded. "That sounds like something a queen would say." Lyra looked at him. "I thought I was not a queen here." Daniel smiled. "Maybe you do not need a crown to be one." The universe continued expanding. New worlds waited. New discoveries waited. And somewhere among countless galaxies, stories were already beginning about the human engineer who opened the doors of an ancient civilization, and the alien queen who discovered that the greatest power in the universe was not technology, armies, or kingdoms. It was trust. And sometimes the most important person you could meet was not someone who arrived from a distant planet. Sometimes they were simply the neighbor who finally opened the door.